I've been asked to do this on video, so hi everybody. Um, so as Kari said, my name is Marcus Lyons. I am a Microsoft Xbox MVP. Like she said, I started with Zune. So my big expertise was always around music. Music's been a big part of my life. It's what my college degree is in. I've performed professionally on trombone for a few years. So music has always been like a big part of my upbringing and my life. But right now, one of the things I've done recently regarding Xbox One is I've decided to cut the cord. And what that meant was taking my big package that I got from Time Warner and sort of paring that down. Because the idea was I wanted to make sure that whatever amount of money I was putting in, I was getting back in equal amounts of entertainment. What I wanted to do today was kind of share my experience in doing that, the kind of tools that I used. And so if anybody is out there thinking about cutting the cord or thinking about paring down the entertainment offerings that they have, hopefully from this you can gain some information to make some better informed decisions, and hopefully see that Xbox One actually is a very capable all-in-one machine. Right now we're in the middle of, or we're actually getting started with E3 here in Los Angeles. Right now Xbox is making a big push as a gaming console. It wants to be seen as a great place for gamers, and it is a great place for gamers. But there is this other side to Xbox where it does great things around apps, TV, and movies. So what I want to do as far as people thinking about Xbox this week is talk about that other side. And to do that, I want to do it around the cutting the cord discussion. So feel free to jump in if you ever have any questions about things that I say. I'm pretty sure there'll be time after I'm done for any more in-depth discussion that you guys want to have. But so this is actually going to be kind of free-flowing. I didn't bring any PowerPoint because I'm terrible at using PowerPoint, so I didn't want to try to like blaze your guys' eyes with that sort of thing. But so this is actually just going to be a big conversation about my experiences with this whole cord cutting thing. And the first thing I kind of wanted to go over is like why I did it, like what's the reasoning behind this whole push. Like I said, I had this big package from Time Warner Cable, and the amount that I was spending was roughly $170. What I got with that was a bunch of cable channels, HBO, home phone, internet. It was this whole shebang, and it was nice because you get one bill for everything, so you only really had to worry about one company if something went wrong. I could come home and I could go down this list of all these different various channels that I could just like jump in and content on. And it's great until myself coming home from work, taking off my shoes, turning on my Xbox because the cable box is plugged into the device, turning it on and finding myself with only going through maybe 4 or 5 channels on any given day or month or year. And over time, as the bill kept showing up, I would look at it and go, okay, something's not right, because if I'm spending all of this money, but I'm only looking at 5 channels in particular, then why can't I just not have those 5 channels? Why can I not just have that particular content with me rather than all of this extra stuff? And it was nice at the time to have all those channels, but it just, for me, at some point, I just figured I had to really pare this down. And there was 2 events that really made me just jump into this whole idea. One was my friend who decided he was going to cut satellite TV out of his life, and he was going to use his Roku box as sort of like the central hub for everything. So he plugged that into his TV. He got through it like Netflix and Hulu and all that stuff, and found himself a little bit more liberated because now he was going out and getting the content he wanted specifically and just paying for that particular service. And he felt now that the money he was putting in was the entertainment he was getting out of it. So that's something that had gotten my brain really working. The second event was I'm on the Xbox One preview program, and it announced that you can finally get over-the-air television through Xbox One when you're on the preview program if you were to get the Hauppauge digital tuner and the Leaf antenna. So that finally gave me the avenue I needed to say, okay, I can now make a full jump into this and see where it goes. So that's kind of like the why I did it. I wanted to see if I can really, make an investment that really did a substantial return, if you want to put it that way. So what I ended up doing was, first I went and got the TV tuner, the Hauppauge TV tuner, and the Leaf, what's called the Leaf Antenna 50. You can actually get this now from Xbox. They actually package it together as one thing. You can find this in Microsoft stores or a Microsoft store online. But at the time, you had to get them separately. So I went to a Best Buy and I got the TV tuner and I got the antenna. And I actually have the TV tuner here with me, if you guys want to see that. It's small, it's USB based. One end of it here, that's where you plug in your antenna. This part you plug into you plug in the back of the Xbox One. As a side note to this, the Hauppauge TV tuner was actually designed to work for PCs. It comes with its own little small antenna about yay big. So if you actually wanted to take some of your over-the-air TV on the go with you, you could. Just plug that small antenna into the back, plug this into the PC, and then let it work some software magic, and you'll be able to get some over-the-air TV on your PC while you're out on the go. So it's kind of cool. But I brought that home. I plugged it into the back of Xbox One. Went through the TV setup. It scanned for as many channels it could find, and from my area, it managed to find 139 different channels. For digital TV specifically, it's not just about having channel 2, 4, 7, and 9. There's things like 4.1, 4.2, 18.1, 18.2, 7.1, 7.2, and all these different channels have all this extra content. So on channel 4, like people would know channel 4 here, that could be the news, weather, the daytime TV shows. But then there's a 4.2, which could show like classic movies, and there's like a 4.3, which would show like different sporting events. So all of that content was not available to me through my cable provider. I had to get that over the air. So I found that plugging in the antenna into my Xbox One and doing that scan opened up much more to me than I would have gotten, and it turned out to be of much more value to me than even I was getting through cable. Because one of my favorite channels turns out to be 18.2, which is a Japanese language channel. They actually do English subtitles, but they do a lot of the Japanese TV shows, Japanese movies. That's one of the things I actually enjoy in life. So it was great to kind of have that available to me without the need of a subscription. Any other questions? Any questions so far? Any of that stuff? No? Everybody's all on the same page. It's a Hauppauge, and I'll actually spell this out for you. It's Hauppauge. If you actually go to news.xbox.com or look up Xbox Wire or look up Mr. Nelson, they actually give a lot of information about the TV tuner, where you could get it, how much it costs, and that sort of thing. So they actually have a lot more in-depth about the tuner and how it works, more so than even I could describe here. So that was the first step. The first step was getting this TV tuner, getting this Leaf 50 antenna, plugging it into the back of my Xbox One, and now having this extra 139, 140 channels available to me. The second part was figuring out what services was available to me on Xbox One that I could use for different types of content. And like I said, Xbox One, while it's great for gaming, does have a lot of breadth to it when it comes to the apps that are available. And so what's cool is right now, what you can do with Xbox One is things like Hulu Plus, you can do Netflix, you can do Comedy Central, they have things like Rosetta Stone for learning different languages. They even have apps for, different smaller publications. There's a lot of breadth right now in Xbox One's app library if you wanted to just have this great amount of content all in one console. It's very, very, very cool. So what I ended up doing was seeing, okay, what of this available app content can I use? And what I ended up using was Netflix, Hulu Plus, and Sling TV. And I'll talk about Sling TV in a little bit. But about that was now I started to actually have content that I was using for the money I was putting in. And actually, I should give you guys two numbers. So the number I gave you was $166, which was the amount I was paying for the Time Warner Cable Triple Play Kaboom package. The number now is 90. That's the amount I'm paying now for internet and Sling and Hulu and Netflix, which is a big drop from 160. Plus, it's 90 that I feel like I'm really putting in and getting something out of it. So one of the things to keep in mind is that if you're going to cut the cord in any way you want to do that, be mindful of the services you want to go to and how much that might add up. Because if you start adding different services and it just jumps back to the price you were paying for your cable, maybe cable might be the best thing. So just keep that in mind. So like I said, I ended up jumping into, Netflix, Hulu, and Sling. And that just ended up becoming now my central form of television because it just gave me all of the content I needed for me. And one of the big things that I'll discuss now is Sling TV and why that actually became an important piece of me cutting the cord and me using Xbox One. For those who don't know, Sling TV is a service of Dish, and what it allows to do is have over-the-air television, but mostly basically cable channels. So there's a base package with Sling, which comes with things like CNN, ESPN, Disney Channel, TNT, TBS, some of the core networks from cable. And what that's allowed me to do just by having that is, especially with having ESPN and TNT, is that I can actually watch sports. I can actually watch football, I can actually watch college sports, I can watch baseball, I can watch basketball. So for a lot of people, cutting the cord would mean getting rid of sports, and that's actually not the case because I'm now paying essentially $30 for good core TV channels plus sports. And actually, the Watch ESPN app, which allows you to watch ESPN like on the go, that works with Sling, so you can actually have ESPN wherever you are. But it's been great to kind of have that in a much lower price point. So this has been like the most phenomenal stuff I've. Now, because Sling is a new service, one of the things it's going to have is growing pains. And I have to tell you guys, it's had some pretty major growing pains. I still enjoy the service, but there's been times where it's just done some really, really funny things. As an example, when the NBA playoffs first started, they would show 3 games back to back to back to back. Left it on the TNT network, you should just be able to watch game 1, game 2, game 3. You could be in the middle of game 2, and all of a sudden the stream would just stop. And you figure, okay, it's probably buffering, it's probably trying to get itself up to speed. But instead of coming back into game 2, what you're now getting is the latter half of game 1. And so that could be a little jarring when you're trying to keep up with your sporting teams and trying to figure out what's going on, is that now you're jumping from game 2 back into game 1. And for the most part, Sling has been able to sort of get those things fixed a bit, where it's doing that less frequently than it used to, but it still happens on occasion and it still can become like this issue. But knowing that it's a new service, knowing that they're trying to make this a real viable, I'm trying to give them time to really get these kinks worked out, especially since I know with technology you have to give people time to get to their version 2 before you figure, okay, this is where it needs to be and this is where something I can actually invest in. So I already see a couple of questions. How long has Sling been around? Is that the question? Sling was actually introduced in CES of this year. And one of the big announcements that came along with that from Xbox was they were going to be one of the first digital partners with Sling, and they were going to allow Xbox Live Gold members, I believe, to have 3 months of it free. So I think now the 3 months part of it is done now that it's launched, but they actually still offer Xbox members at least 1 month to try it out, which for Sling is a pretty good long time to really see if it's something you want to do. Like I said, I'm going to give Sling time. I want them to get the kinks worked out, get to that version 2, and I'm pretty sure by then they'll actually be able to be a really nice, viable service. As far as pricing for Sling, the base package is $20. That includes 21 channels. Like I said, ESPN, TNT, TBS, CNN, things like that. Yeah, history. And then there's $5 add-on packs, depending upon what type of content you want. So there's like a $5 kids thing. There's a $5 news package. There's a $5 sports. They even now are doing international packages in case you want to see like Spanish language stuff, or if you want to see stuff, from Indian countries. It's a pretty cool set of things you can add on. They've also added HBO, but that, because it's HBO, is a $15 add-on. But what's interesting about that is you don't need HBO Go, because all of HBO's content is built into Sling. The movies they offer, all of the live feed, which I believe is just of the first HBO, not the HBO Family or any of those type of channels. So all in all, like I said, this stuff can get pricey if you aren't careful, but it does allow you to pick at least the area of content that you want and not feel like you have to get this plethora of dozens and dozens and dozens of channels that you may never really do anything with. And I've been reading up on Sling, keeping up with Sling, and I know that they're going to be adding content over time. I think one of the things they may consider is adding over-the-air channels as its own pack. Personally, I think that should be a free pack, but at least they would think that might get an antenna that just isn't cooperating. At least having it available in digital form might be a good route for people. So giving them time, they might actually make this into a really nice, viable service. So that's pretty much Sling, and that became the cornerstone of what I was doing now on Xbox One, because that gave me the live TV that I would need. The other two services that I was using are Netflix, which everybody knows is like one of the big popular video streaming services with its own original series. I love using it for documentaries. I love using it for finding classic films like growing up that I would just love to see again. I just actually watched Jumanji like 2 weeks ago. So, it's just good to have that kind of content available. And then there's Hulu Plus, which is basically Netflix for television. So if you want to catch up on what's been happening with a lot of your favorite TV series, that's a great way to go. Especially if you're not all about sitting in front of the TV the night the show comes on. If you can actually wait a couple of days, or if you just can wait till the next day, that Hulu Plus is very, very good for that. So if you combine Sling and Netflix and Hulu together, you really have this nice full breadth of content available to you for all kinds of video and television services. So any questions about any of that so far? I'll give people time to chime in. Gives me a chance to catch my breath too. Sling, the comment was, one thing that took me by surprise was that Sling was only live, no on demand. The way Sling works is you can access live channels. Like, for example, you can access, let's just call it one of them, Disney Junior. You can watch Disney Junior, you can watch the Mickey Mouse shows and all that stuff. But there is, for some of those channels, there is an on-demand component. It's just kind of hard to get to because the UI is not intuitive for this kind of thing. If you actually go to the channel and hit up on it instead of down, what you'll actually access is schedule of upcoming programs. At least this is how it looks on the Xbox One. Schedule of upcoming programs, and below that is some of the shows that are available on demand. Means of there's a few episodes of those particular shows you can watch. So in the case of like Disney Junior, you scroll down, you go to like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. I know this because I know little kids, and it'll actually offer you like 5 episodes of that show. And so it's not 5 in order; it's like 5 scattered throughout the multiple seasons. So it's there, but it's not as intuitive I think that's one of the other things Sling is going to have to contend with as it adds more and more content, is try to figure out a UI that's more intuitive to say, hey, not only can you see the live version of this channel, but here's like some of the catalog for you to access. And I think that's just going to be important as we move further down the line with the service. So there's some on-demand content there, but just not a very intuitive, easy way of getting there. Were there any other questions anybody else has before I move on? So the things I also wanted to move on with Xbox One is, again, this idea that it can do a lot more than gaming, because a lot of entertainment doesn't always have to come from the TV show. It doesn't have to come from the movie. A lot of the great things Xbox One does is around, let's say, like I said, some of the apps up at the top was Rosetta Stone. There's actually a Rosetta Stone app on Xbox One, so you can actually use that to learn languages. One of the apps on Xbox One is Khan Academy. If you're not familiar with Khan Academy, that's a whole free service that just does a great deal of like educational topics, from math to science to chemistry, you name it. I even found on Khan Academy where they partnered with the Getty Museum, which is here in Southern California. It's one of my favorite places to visit. They, with them, actually do these series of curated videos about some of the art at the Getty Museum. So it's a great place to learn about art. Xbox One also has YouTube, so there's a lot of great content on YouTube for people to browse. There's a lot of news services like ABC News, launched an app there. So these apps, you can really make Xbox One just a central place. And the console itself, does all of this stuff. And obviously, because I'm a big music guy, I would be remiss not to mention that Xbox One does a lot of great things around music. There's Xbox Music, there's now Pandora, and there's now iHeartRadio. So as these services come onto this console, you'll start to see that it could just be the one box in the living room for everything. That's kind of nice to have when you don't want to have a bunch of things thrown around all plugged into this TV. Just have Xbox One and one HDMI going in, and everything's now available to you. It's fantastic. So one of the things in the description about what I also wanted to talk about was the HDMI port on Xbox One, because originally that was supposed to be this thing where if you had a cable box and you plugged it out of the HDMI, you could plug it into the HDMI in of the console, and so that's how you were going to watch your cable without having to switch the input on the TV itself. It was just all going to go through Xbox One. But if you're like me and now you have Hulu Plus and Netflix, Sling, and over the air, you have other uses that you can use that HDMI in for. And so what I ended up finding out was that if you have nothing plugged into that HDMI port, what's going to happen is that HDMI port becomes a channel on the One Guide. So let me kind of run that out for a second. One Guide on Xbox One is where you'll find all your TV content. So if you start up TV, and for TV in this case means over the air. Sling does its own thing. So if you start up the TV app, you will actually get the over the air antenna stuff. Still comes with a nice little TV Guide type One Guide, which will show you all the channels, what's coming up, what's going on. One of those channels becomes the HDMI port. So if you were to plug in, say, an Xbox 360, if you were to plug in a Roku stick, if you plugged in a Amazon Fire Stick, and you hit HDMI as a channel, it's going to turn on whatever's plugged into that HDMI port. So if you want to use your Roku stick or your Amazon TV stick for other types of content that are available on those services, you could. So that's actually a really another cool way of getting more and more content going through this one console. But so it's kind of interesting, actually, because I was suggesting originally when I thought of this presentation was, you can actually take now your Xbox 360, the predecessor to Xbox One, plug that into your Xbox One console, and now you can play games through the Xbox One onto the TV from the 360. So again, you wouldn't have to switch any inputs. It all just comes through one place. So obviously Microsoft and Xbox decided, that they wanted to kind of kill that news from me by dropping a bomb yesterday by saying that one for gamers will now have backwards compatibility with old 360 games. So that's actually a very, very big deal because that's one of the things that was keeping people from going from using 360 at all and going into Xbox One was that idea of backwards compatibility. But they've actually managed to solve that. So starting in the fall, a lot of the 360 back catalog will just start showing up for people who bought those games right onto Xbox One. So that's actually a fantastic thing. Their program members get to start that as of yesterday. I've gotten to test it out myself. It's about as amazing as you can imagine. When you start a 360 game, it actually does the whole Xbox 360 startup sequence. You use the Xbox One controller the way you would use the 360 controller. Any achievements you've gotten on 360, all that stuff moves forward. If you're playing your 360 game on Xbox One and a friend is playing that same game on a 360 somewhere, you two can play against each other. So it's not just about, oh, I'm playing on one now, I can't play with you. It's really a full Xbox 360 experience going on with your Xbox One with that game. So you can still do the multiplayer stuff with your friends who still have 360s and haven't made the jump yet. So that's actually a very, very, very cool thing. Question was Kinect games are compatible. Actually, the way they set it up is that it's through emulation. So what they did was build an Xbox 360 out of just software, and so that's what's running all of the Xbox 360 games. And they said, unfortunately, hardware-based gaming, I can't move forward. Dance Central, those type of games can't move forward. But some developers then will just probably design a new version for Xbox One anyway, like Dance Central did that. Rock Band's going to do that. So probably some things with that there. But a good version of those games that were just really like controller-based, like, Halo and stuff like that, that stuff's all going to move forward. And what you're going to see, now on this topic, what you're going to see on your console is that games you bought on 360, as they appear on Xbox One, will automatically appear in your games and apps area ready to install. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go searching for them. You don't have to, go to some special place to, find them to download. They will just start to show up. And when they do, you just hit install and the game will install right there on your, and you can play it just the way you would play it on 360. If the game appears in your games and apps, but you used a disc to play, all you have to do is put the disc into Xbox One. That will initiate the download of the game, and once you have the disc in, then you can play that game still. So it's essentially taking Xbox 360, putting it inside Xbox One so that you now have pretty much one console for everything. Now combine all of that with your TV stuff, your music stuff, your Khan Academies of the world, your Rosetta Stones of the world, and now you're starting to see how Xbox One can be this one central device in life. So I think it really touched on what's going to make this console very cool for everybody. From the hardcore gamer to the casual gamer to the person who just wants it as an entertainment machine. There's going to be something now for everybody to really get some value out of this console. And for me, what's made it special is the fact that I can now pare down the cost of my entertainment, and now I really come home and feel like I'm getting a lot of value from what I'm putting in. I'm turning on Sling all the time. I'm turning on ESPN all the time. I'm turning on Netflix all the time, Hulu Plus all the time. And so now that I feel like because I'm using them a lot more, I feel like what I'm paying for them is not such a big deal anymore. So when I get these bills, it's just second nature to me to pay them and not really worry or think about, am I getting the value out of this? I truly believe I am now getting the value out of this. So if there's now any questions about any of that stuff, I think that kind of is the bulk of everything I wanted to talk about. If you guys wanted to talk about anything about Xbox One, I can answer to the best of my ability. So that concludes the more presentation part of this. So if there's any questions, let's just our conversation. We're typing, so I gave you guys time to type. The question was, did I look at DVRs like TiVo? Not yet. That's actually kind of one of the next things I was gonna be like diving into. I really only started this maybe like 2 months ago, and so there's a lot I've learned about me as a person consuming content. There's a lot of things I've learned about what's really the value of entertainment. There is talk of Xbox One having some DVR capability. I'm hoping that becomes a thing because, again, since this box is now becoming like the central to everything, it would just be nice to just have that available all in one place, especially now that Xbox One allows for external storage. You can actually add on 2 external hard drives to Xbox One as long as they are USB 3.0 and they have to be 256 gigabyte or larger. If they fall under those 2 criteria, you can plug them both into back of Xbox One for installing like games and apps. And I would hope at some point that could even be where you can store DVR clips from TV shows. So, because I know a lot of my friends, and here's an elephant in the room, I know a lot of my friends miss Windows Media Center, and I know that's not moving forward with Windows 10. So hopefully Xbox One can help pick up that slack for people and still keep that of being able to watch live TV, record live TV, and have it all in the central location. So I'm hoping, even though Xbox wants to see itself as a game machine, and it could and it should because it's good at that even the entertainment stuff that they have in place, that gets built up and expanded and becomes something really, really fantastic, I would say even later on this year. Were there any other questions? About how I use Xbox One for music. Gee, that would be about 3 days worth of content in itself. But as Kari mentioned at the beginning, I started off with Zune. And one of the reasons I started off with Zune was because, I was starting to consolidate the music services that I were using at the time because I was pretty much everywhere across the board. And so I kind of wanted to find one service to do everything for me. And Zune ended up becoming that service. But what put it over the top was Zune was very community oriented. And that's one of the things I really feel music is. It's a very community based media. I mean, nobody goes to a concert to just sit in the back by themselves. I mean, a really good concert experience is you standing next to a person who only speaks Spanish, a person who only speaks Japanese, a person who only speaks Russian, but the 4 of you know the exact chorus of that song when it comes up. That to me is like an important part of music and how it really brings people together. So I really, really gravitated towards Zune because it had that community aspect. And I kind of hope that over time Xbox Music grabs some of that magic and puts it into its own services. I think that's very, very, very important. So I obviously didn't use Xbox Music on Xbox One because Xbox Music is very cloud oriented, because I can store my music in OneDrive. It's nice to have that entire collection available to me right there on Xbox One, all of my music from back to when I can remember. So that to have, but I actually do supplement that with occasional spins of iHeartRadio and Pandora, because those apps are good at what I would say is discovery. It's nice to try different apps and different artists and really see what kind of music it would present to you. Like, it's been through doing things like that I've discovered many artists I probably would have never ever touched in the world. Two great examples that come to mind are Junip, Junip. I love that band now. And The Two Bears, which was a funny title to me when I first heard about this group, but I start to love their music too. So using those 3 services now on Xbox One has been a great way for me to have the collection that's mine, my personal collection, through OneDrive and Xbox Music, but to also have that chance for discoverability through the Pandora and iHeartRadio apps. So it's been nice to kind of go back and forth between them. It's been nice also to have those apps snapped on Xbox One, which means they're put off to the side of the screen while I'm like searching through games and apps or installing something or shopping in the store. It's nice to have them kind of keep playing music while I'm doing other things on the console, and I think that's one of the other key points of Xbox One is that you can actually have two experiences going at the same time, so you don't have to feel like you're doing one or the other and jumping back and forth and waiting for one thing to start while the other one ends. You kind of have two things going at the same time. So that's how I use music on the console. It's either going to be a big premiere thing where it's just going to blast into my living room, or it's going to be sitting on the side while I'm doing other things. And it's actually when it's sitting on the side that I use it more for discovery stuff, because I kind of just want to have it background in my ear while I'm doing other things, and suddenly something will catch my ear, and that's when oh, who's that group? Oh, what do they play? What's in their catalog? And so that's how I use music on Xbox right now. Were there any other questions, thoughts, feedback? Did everybody see all the Xbox announcements from E3 from yesterday? Because they announced a lot of very, very cool things, games and otherwise. I think my favorite highlight is the backwards compatibility, because I think that really is what's going to a lot of people to finally see Xbox One as something important, because now they're pretty much going to get an Xbox One and an Xbox 360 all in one box, which is, I think, still very, very, very cool. So like I said, thank you guys for listening to me ramble. E3, like I said, is this week, so there's going to be a lot of cool things I'm sure that Xbox will still be talking about. So if you look up Xbox for E3, they've already done some cool things, like they've demonstrated the backwards compatibility and how that works. They're going to have a new dashboard for Xbox One. They already have a video of that available, so you can actually see how that works. It really looks nice. It's really fast, and it's really based on what they're doing with Windows 10. I suggest you guys look up the HoloLens demonstration that they did on stage yesterday in Minecraft. I mean, I was in the room and everybody was pretty much taken aback by how well it worked and the cool things you could do, and I think that's going to be a really major thing going on this year. And if you are thinking about cutting the cord, if you are thinking about paring down your entertainment offerings to kind of get it more manageable, the best advice I would give is know what you want out of your entertainment, know what services will give you that, and also make sure that you know the value of it all. So take what you have now, see how much it would be to pare it down. Is that a good cost-effective thing for you? It may be, it may not be. Take the things that I said just kind of like as a guide or as part of your overall thinking about how you want to do this. If you guys want to reach out to me, that'd be kind of important. I'm always available to answer questions, try to guide you guys in the right direction, whether it be about Xbox music, that sort of stuff, or if you just want to suggest songs to me, I'm always up for that sort of thing too. So if you want to find me on Twitter, if you have a Twitter account, I am at Trombone for Hire. That's all one word, all spelled out. TROMBONEFORHIRE. You can find me there. I'll probably be sending pictures of what I see at E3 all this week, so feel free to comment on that stuff too. I can be reached on email, so it'll be the same name, Trombone for Hire, except at sn.com. That's the email address I use for people who want to correspond and say, hey, I'm having this issue with Xbox, or I heard you mention this thing about the tuner, where I can get more info about that. Like I said, I'll be happy to guide you to wherever you need to go to, get that information, because I know it's important for making those effective decisions. So feel free to reach out to me, and those are the two main ways to do it. And even from there, there'll be other ways to get in contact with me. I again thank you guys for allowing me to have this have this discussion with you. I may do a couple of more of these in the future. I've already seen one where it's been suggested I do one specifically on music, and actually I would love to expand that more so into like my MVP experience going from something like Zune to something like Xbox Music, because that in itself is just a very interesting story, I think. You know, what happened with Zune and how we think that was just an amazing service that was too ahead of its time to Xbox Music. And the bridge there is actually a pretty interesting tale. So one day I'll probably do a whole discussion around that, because that could just really be interesting. So if there aren't any other questions, then we can just feel free to wrap up.
Thank you so much, Marcus. That was awesome. I actually learned a lot. And I also want to thank everybody who joined today, too. If you have any other questions, you can always reach out to us on Twitter as well. We're MVP Mentor, or just MVP Award. And once again, if you have ideas for things you want to present on or have more questions, just let us know. Otherwise, Marcus, thank you so much. Have a blast at the rest of the event this week, and keep us posted on Twitter.
No problem. Thank you guys for all the listening and all the questions. I really, really appreciate it.
All right, thanks all.